Hello and welcome to the Nintendo Pipeline Podcast. And boy golly, it's been a while. Uh, Today I'm joined by my two co-hosts.
You sure are. Hi, I'm CMM.
And hi, I'm Mina, and also our host didn't introduce himself. Did he? Or did he?
I'm one up
I think he did.
Okay,
he
you know
did.
my bad.
Also, you can call me Jared.
Our
There we
brains
go.
are all, clogged.
It's been quite the day. Merry Switchmas, everyone.
Yeah,
Merry
today's
Switchmas.
the
It
day.
came
We're
late.
just gonna do a casual
Yeah.
episode about the Nintendo Switch reveal, so we can get hours and hours of content out of a 2-minute YouTube video.
Oh
Yep.
yeah.
As we do. So, it's called Switch 2.
Whoa, spoilers! That doesn't happen till like the last third of the video.
I know. So let's talk about the name. I like it. It's quite simple.
Yeah.
They very
you know,
clearly were going for, we do not want anyone misunderstanding what this is.
it gets the job done. It's like,
Yeah.
here you go. This is the second Switch.
It is
the-
weird for Nintendo though.
It's weird for
Yeah.
Nintendo. They've
doing
never
that.
done this, right? To my knowledge.
Like,
Yeah.
Maybe
I
I'm
guess
forgetting
you
something.
technically, like the 3DS, but that's not like the DS2.
No, that's that's
It's
even that's
similar.
different, right?
It's the closest I would say.
So
Yeah.
it's like Nintendo's never just done like a numbered system like sequel. I don't know if sequel is the right word, but it's it's weird for Nintendo, but I'm happy they did it because it's gonna avoid a lot of confusion.
Yeah. It
There's
just
not
makes
gonna
it
be any
seem like,
concern trolling about is this
yeah.
a
Well.
Pro?
Let's hold on there for a second. There's always room for concern trolling.
Sure, but about this topic at least. Everyone will know it's a new system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
It is, we talked about this a long time ago when there was the discussion around the original Switch and the idea of Switch having an iterative successor and it almost being sort of like, I guess we kind of compared it to phones where it's like a Galaxy S1, a Galaxy S2.
Yeah.
And now we
does
have
kind
this sort
feel
of
like that.
phone naming scheme
Yeah.
for
Where
Switch 2.
It's not
which
an
again
entirely new
is
entity.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah, but it
very
does feel like
clear.
Nintendo's kind of reached like, where they've wanted to be. We've kind of known this for years, but this kind of solidifies that, where it's like, okay, you're
now
probably
you
not
can
getting like a console again,
you can do
Right.
like Switch 2 Lite or Switch 2 OLED or whatever. Like your naming scheme is set.
Yeah, but like it's not like you're not getting a non-Switch anytime soon. It says, hey,
No.
Switch is kind
To
of our
me,
thing
Yeah.
now.
yeah, and never say never,
Mhm.
right? But it feels like we're in the final form of Nintendo hardware in a lot of ways. It just feels like this is what Nintendo hardware is now. It's Nintendo Switch. Their console business is Switch, right? It's a hybrid platform
Yep.
with Joy-Cons and whatever, right? It just feels
It's
like
great.
this is
Yeah.
I mean it's a great system, right? So it's like, I don't mind this at all, right? And
No,
clearly there's room for innovation,
Mhm.
right? Because they teased some stuff in this trailer.
Yep.
With, which I don't know if we're just gonna jump into that. Uh, it
Yeah, we
seemed
can.
like they used the Joy Cons as a mouse.
It
Yeah,
did seem
mouse
like
mode
that.
is here.
So this was speculated already, right? In fact, a lot of stuff we talked about kind of because of leaks, we kind of knew all this shit, right?
Yeah.
It's nice seeing it solidified.
Yeah, it's nice seeing it solidified. And plus we never talked about the leaks on the podcast, so this is our chance to actually talk about all these new features,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so using the Joy-Cons as a mouse is one of them. And because we saw that it has a laser
The
that has like a
optical
Yeah, the
laser
optical sensor.
optical sensor.
Which is
And
what your digital mice would have.
yes. And then we saw them like with the strap kind of roll the Joy-Con on its side around, right?
Yep.
And so it seems to clearly be hinting at a new input scheme for the Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
And I think that's very exciting. You know?
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm actually most excited about in regards to anything Switch 2. Like everything is very iterative, which is fine. But the stuff that I tend to find enjoyable are new inputs. So they didn't show it in the trailer, but we're aware this thing has a microphone on it now. So between the microphone and now mouse mode, as I think we're calling it,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there. I also think, with the Joy-Con straps, I kind of think they don't want you just scraping the Joy-Con against a
Yeah.
surface. So I feel
Yeah.
like the
Right.
Joy-Con straps are going to have some sort of smoothing or like some sort
They
of
look a little
material or
rubbery,
something.
don't they?
Yeah, like something to make it so that it's not like plastic
You
on
could
wood or
see the
plastic
bump.
on
That
whatever.
bump is like the mouse
Yeah.
material.
Yeah.
You can only see it for like a frame or two, but I
Um,
actually wanted to talk about the mouse.
yeah.
That this will be the first like console that where every single person who owns this thing also has a mouse accessory. Like we've
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
mice on this like the Super Nintendo and probably another console, but the Super Nintendo mouse is like the iconic one. But that's an accessory. Not everybody has that, so developers usually won't like want to make games for it. But now they assume everybody can have a mouse, which is cool.
Yeah, it's just built in now, right? Everyone has
Yeah.
one because it comes with your system. And so you can design games around that, right? And that's exciting. And people have got so many possibilities. Mario Maker is the obvious one,
Yeah,
right?
Animal
Yeah.
Crossing, drawing your like designs on there. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
it's another option. It's just cool.
Pikmin, I can see you like controlling the cursor with the mouse, which would feel
Yeah.
amazing, I think.
Or like
Yeah.
I
Right?
think there's a lot of opportunity for previously like games that were like primarily PC games and they receive console ports, but they generally have to have control schemes that are made for analog sticks
Like
and
Baldur's
buttons,
Gate
which might not be
3,
which might not be optimal. So like RTS games on PC, like StarCraft, or like even FPS games, if people prefer to have
yeah,
like a mouse
Splatoon with
style.
mouse controls would be
Yeah.
great.
Um, Something I didn't see anyone talk about that I'm surprised about is I think this actually opens up new possibilities for accessibility options.
Mm,
Um,
Sure.
for like one-handed controllers,
yeah,
for
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
Especially if you have the basic system level button remapping kind of thing
Mm,
that the regular Switch
yeah.
does. If
So
you're
you
able
can
to
get like a
set,
mouse com with more buttons or something.
or if you're like able to set the optical sensor to be mapped to like an analog stick,
Oh,
for
interesting.
example, or or if you just have control schemes that are a bit more friendly for one-handed play,
one-handed. Yeah.
or if you have third-party accessory makers who are able to take advantage of the optical sensor to make custom configurations or stuff like that. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that sense as well, which I think is really exciting.
Yeah.
My wife had a very fun idea for Clubhouse games,
Yeah,
which is you could play air hockey where you can just like
yeah,
move the mouse
Yeah.
around like a
That's funny.
puck.
That's funny.
Uh, and then, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunity for simple, fun stuff. I mean, I
Yeah.
want my mouse mode WarioWare.
Oh,
Here we are
WarioWare is
Yes,
going to
again.
be a
WarioWare.
great use for case for that.
Something I just thought of is that like you can use two mice at the same time, which is
Yep.
something that you don't do on any console or even computer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't tip. That's not a
Like that's
typical
not a typical thing you
default
do,
scheme. Yeah.
but potentially
Um,
very cool.
I am curious if the optical sensor will be present on the Pro controller as well. Like,
I
what if there's a
I don't see
flat
I
piece on
why.
the
would
back?
doubt
I think
it.
it's only for the mouse
I
part.
kind of doubt it as well, but I was just sort of curious, um, if that would be a thing or not. Not that it would necessarily have to be, but I that is sort of on my mind as well.
Mhm.
And
Uh,
also like what their ideas
yeah.
for implementation of it are.
Yeah,
Oh
I wonder
yeah.
if they'll be able to use it for the operating system even.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, why not, right? Yeah, there's just it opens up a lot of possibilities. Like I think like and this is genuinely just like a brand new input for consoles,
Mhm.
right? Because like you said, there's been like mice like accessories or even on modern consoles you can technically use a mouse, though not many support it. But this
Right. Or
time it's
you have
like
like the track pads like on the Steam Deck. Um,
yeah.
Yeah.
So like ideas like this have floated around before, but this is the first time you can just guarantee, okay, like this system. So especially if you're developing like an exclusive, right?
Yeah.
You can definitely use, but you can. I think it'll be good for third-party games like Civ or
Baldur's Gate 3
uh,
would be the best
Baldur's Gate 3 for sure.
controller
Yeah.
option.
Something like the Sims would benefit greatly
Yeah,
from
The
that.
Sims would be cool.
Roller Coaster Tycoon came out on
Mhm.
Switch recently, and for
Yeah.
whatever reason, did not support touch controls, although they said that is a possibility in the future. But that was kind of like the first game I thought of when I was
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
yeah, a
and
mouse would make this nice.
Stardew Valley would play a
yes,
lot nicer with a mouse.
Yeah.
I
the
actually really like
possibilities
Stardew
are.
computer controls.
And I think it's just another way to try to make as many different games and as many different types of games
Yeah.
playable as
I love that the
conveniently as
Switch
possible on
is
Switch.
the gimmick machine where like you can play Wii games, you can play uh technically like DS games with a touchscreen. There's so many different inputs that leads to so many different fun things.
Yeah, I think it just kind of the mouse sort of bridges the gap some more. It makes it it sort of makes this console the closest Nintendo's ever had to a PC, kind of
Mm,
just because I think the mouse is just so characteristic of a PC.
yeah, I
Oh
Like,
yeah.
agree. I would love to see
um,
like a keyboard or something.
but it bridges that gap where you can have especially with that and the tech boost,
Mhm.
you can have certain games that are more PC oriented, um, maybe be a little bit smoother in the transition to console, and
Yeah,
it could be
for sure.
a preferred way to play those games off PC.
Mhm.
Like if
Hmm.
um, the other thing I
Yeah, it's
wanted
an
to ask you
interesting idea.
guys. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I know. I just said it's an interesting idea. I
Yeah.
hope people add mouse support to their existing games, like Balatro would be cool, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah, Bellagio would be great. The thing I wanted to ask you guys, because I still can't tell, did any of you see the IR camera?
No,
I think,
but
There's like
yeah,
a line on the bottom of both Joy-Cons, and it's very difficult to tell if it's just like plastic or if it's just like what it is, or if there's nothing that like I can't figure it out.
I will say they specifically have used WarioWare Move It as an example of games that are backwards compatible, and
Hmm.
that game does use the IR camera. Now,
Okay.
obviously, it could just mean, oh, you can connect your old Joy-Con in some way,
Yeah,
right?
which I believe
But
is the belief right now. You just connect them
yeah,
through
wirelessly,
Bluetooth or whatever.
which
Yeah.
yeah,
is
because obviously you can't
interesting
connect them anymore.
because
But
those are harder to connect without the just plugging them in.
Without being able to just pop on,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you
But
can't
which,
charge them unless you have your old Switch or one of those external
with,
chargers.
and obviously they say that like they have the general coverage statement where it's like not all games may be compatible. We already know that like Labo is not going to work, for example. We know
Yeah,
that you can't play Ring Fit on Switch 2 without a Switch 1 Joy-Con
yeah,
because
which is
that's just how it fits in the
I
accessory.
hope they make a Switch to Ring Fit soon.
My
Because
yeah,
hope is
I love that.
that they do have an IR camera included on there, even if it's still just on the right Joy-Con.
We've seen the
I
leaks though.
I
Has
don't
it
I
shown
don't
up
know
in the
I don't
renders?
know
I'm
if
not sure if
anyone
it
has been
has.
able to specify it.
Yeah.
yeah. I don't
Uh,
know if anyone's actually like confirmed or deconfirmed it, so
Mhm.
it's hard to
yeah,
say.
I
But
personally have an affinity for it now, especially because of that one guy who does all the fun Joy-Con IR camera games, like the what do you call it? He did the Dizzy Hero one, and he did that where it's like you have to be like dancing around to be able to like be a superhero. There's like all kinds of silly stuff with that, and I think it would be kind of a shame if like
Yeah.
one of
I
the like one like new kind of interesting, even if underutilized, functionalities of Switch One wasn't there for
yeah.
Switch Two.
Though
Um,
unless the renders are just wrong, it does seem like it's cool.
it's hard. Yeah, it's just really hard to tell. I mean, we know
Yeah.
that for example, I guess we can use this to move into another actual topic, which is before the reveal there was the C button, right? And in the
yeah,
review trailer today, that button did not have anything on it. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
we
just
know
a
that they're not
mysterious.
we we know that they aren't necessarily showing everything, though there isn't really any reason to
to
pretend that
hide
the
the
IR
letter
camera
C.
isn't there.
Yeah.
But so the C button. I'm very curious
Yeah.
about this, right? Because it's unlabeled. I don't think it'll be unlabeled in the final version.
No,
Yeah.
and that's what
Also,
I mean. Is
right.
I don't think it'll
it
be
is labeled
unlabeled.
like on the side of the controller. You can see a C button on a single Joy-Con.
Oh, can you?
I think so. I feel
I
like I
didn't
I
see
saw
didn't
it
it
in the
in
catch that.
trailer.
That's
Like I
interesting.
thought they specifically intentionally did not have it labeled in the trailer.
Let me try to find. Yeah, I may keep
But
talking.
it,
I'm gonna try to see if I can
but
find
yeah,
it.
I'm curious about what it does. There is a rumor about it. It's called
Hmm.
Campus, right? Where you have a group chat of up to 12 people. You can do a voice chat in there. You can screen share with people in there. That's the
Yeah,
ongoing rumor right now. I don't know how legitimate
yeah,
that is or not.
yeah.
Um,
I would be fine
but
with that.
I'd be fine with that too, for sure. I'm just curious why Nintendo's like going as far as hiding what the button even looks like right now.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, I think that's weird, a
yeah.
little
It's weird that
strange of
just
them.
like even if it was just like if the C was there, all people are gonna do is like, oh, that's not the button one up. It's a different thing.
That's not. Oh, it looks like
So
a
the C
C.
button is the one that's beneath the home button.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it's
I don't know why I thought it was on the side as well. It looks like a
Yeah,
C, but I was wrong. I'm so sorry.
yeah. I can see why you would think that. But yeah. So right now it's just a blank button, which we believe is a C. And yeah, that was the rumor that went around. If that is accurate, I'd be fine with that. I'm not really a huge online person, but I don't mind the idea of being able to have like a quick hangout space with people and like screen share.
my
Yeah,
one
it's
desire
very
for
nice.
it is you can drop a game invite into your campus.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah,
The
it
invite
If
does
it
system
make
on
has,
Switch is worse than the
it,
Xbox 360, which was released 20 years ago.
yeah. So
yeah,
if you could drop a game invite in your campus, that feature alone will justify the whole thing for me. Honestly, that'll be
yeah.
like, okay, yeah, that's great.
And
Yeah,
they started doing the like game invite thing for select titles like towards the end of
it's just
Switch.
clunky.
So I'm hoping that they just kind of continue that.
Yeah,
Um the what do you call it? The brain. I lost my train of thought. The actual like functionality, if that is true, sounds nice. So I guess
there's a
we'll see
microphone.
there. And there's a microphone in the tablet, even though they didn't
So
really show that.
Nintendogs is
Yeah.
back.
Nintendogs is back, baby.
The most important thing, microphone and the mouse. Oh, that's right. I was
Oh
gonna say
yeah.
it would be fun if you could like draw pictures to each other with the mouse.
Picto Chat 2.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about the magnets? So we removed the railing of the
Hmm.
old Joy-Con, right? And now they just snap right in,
Mhm.
Yeah,
right?
bitch. Magnets.
So it does seem easier because especially like
Yes.
the Joy-Con straps are really finicky and annoying.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
replacing that with a magnet just seems more convenient, but just a
Yeah.
little faster.
And it seems like they go on the same way. They just kind of like plop
Um
over the top.
Yeah, it seems
and
like it
it
connects the same way in all the accessories they've shown. There's just three.
I would hope that this means it's gonna be a lot sturdier, right?
Yeah.
Because the original Joy-Cons, the original Switch, the railing would start to get loose at some point, right?
Mm,
This has
Yeah.
happened to literally all of my Joy-Cons.
Yes.
Um, and so your Switch starts feeling loose at some point, and I hate that feeling,
It's not
honestly.
a
the
good feeling.
magnets
Yeah.
do get weaker over time, though. So
Oh, but hopefully they're strong enough that they'll at least last like a while, right?
yeah, that's the
Yeah.
hope.
Um,
Well, the talk was that the magnet connectivity was also engaged by electrical current. Um,
oh,
Oh, that's
interesting.
why the
so,
button probably releases it.
so when
Maybe
when you press the button to release, it's disengaging the electric current to detach.
fascinating.
And then the middle part
Oh,
that has been the talk of the town today, which is the actual charge connector. Um, some people are saying, oh, this thing might snap. And maybe it will be a point of failure. Who knows? But I feel like I don't know. I feel like they've likely put that thing through its paces.
You'd
You
hope
yeah,
know,
for
so.
sure.
Yeah.
the magnets are supposed to align it essentially to click into the charge
Yeah, what if that'll be
connection.
like more consistent? Like, yeah, it would suck if like the magnets sometimes just like made it like just
Yeah,
clang against it.
it feels like they're looking for like a much simpler, easy to remove situation because one of the things initially with Switch before they were kind of worn in a little bit is sometimes getting the Joy-Cons on and off was a little tight. And the tiny release button was also kind of weird to get used to. Now you got those big gripper buttons to release.
That tiny release button just gets like stuck sometimes on especially the grips.
Yeah. So like personally, I think the magnet thing is interesting. I think being able to more conveniently remove and attach controllers is a great thing for usability. I also think it's a nice visual difference to distinguish the two, because the first Switch is characterized by that sliding in snap. And so you have a Switch 2 now that is more characterized by this sort of like click that's like pull and push sort of click on the side.
Yeah.
So I think
and
that's
it looks
interesting.
just it just looks easier to get into like the strap, so maybe you'd be more likely to use the Joy-Con strap.
Yeah, the Joy-Con straps in particular were annoying to get on and off because you needed to get a certain grip on them to really like pull them. And if it is the case that the Joy-Con straps kind of just snap on top now, that is a massive usability improvement for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Because and I don't know how that's going to engage. Like we have the Joy-Con grip again. I don't know how that's going to interact with the magnets. Like if they're using electric current to stay attached to the side of the Switch, how does it differ for those accessories? But I think them being a bit bigger by necessity, of course, is going to be a bit more comfortable for people, and then being able to more easily attach and detach them from the console and from the Joy-Con straps and whatnot is also a very big improvement.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer that it seems like they're still using the same analog sticks. Seem to have no improvement. Like the range of them, just like it's fine. The Joy-Cons are fine.
The general range
is not great.
The general stick visually looks similar, but I'm not convinced that they're the identical sticks or whatever. I mean, obviously the hope is that they've gone with something more reliable this time. I do feel like they would want to avoid that situation, and if they did choose to go with something different, I don't think they would bring attention to it either. So that's going to be one of those like you gotta wait until someone pops the thing open sort of situations, I think, with those. But I understand the concern around that. Obviously I would prefer that they go with like Hall effect or something more reliable than.
And it could still be Hall effect. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't. We just really don't know.
General range of motion.
Yeah, the general range of motion. I know some people aren't a fan of. I personally prefer the smaller range of motion, but like other people despise it.
Games, but bad for others. Which is fair. But yeah, you mentioned that the Switch 2 is bigger, which is just a general thing. Do we know how big the screen size is?
Yeah, I'm not wild about it. The OLED is already sort of like near the max of where I want it to be size-wise, but presuming that like this is sort of like sort of like the final like size increase, I can deal with it. The stand I find interesting because I really like the OLED stand. The U-based stand is kind of interesting. It also seems to have
it's not a downgrade. I'm not going to say it is a downgrade immediately because I've never used it yet, right? But I hope it's not. It seems like it has a good range of motion, though.
It has a really good range of motion. I'm just kind of like, I don't know what it is. There's something about it I don't like compared to the OLED one.
Sure.
I think it just looks uglier. I think that's what
that
it
one
is.
Like.
Do we have any idea if it has an Ethernet port on it?
We do not. I want to say
the dock presumably has one, but I doubt the Switch itself does.
Yeah.
No, that's what I meant, the dock, because the first Switch obviously didn't have a dock.
Right, and then the OLED dock added that in.
I'm going to assume yes, but I don't think we know. As far
I don't think we actually know. My assumption is yes. I would be kind of surprised.
Yeah. And especially with the online focus.
Yeah. The other thing is that, like, supposedly, and again, this is stuff we don't know yet, but supposedly the dock has like an onboard fan this time. and stuff like that. And I mean, we haven't really seen any of that. We just kind of saw the general look of the dock, which I think it looks nice.
Yeah.
Um,
What do we think of the humongous, disgusting bezels?
they're not really that many. Like the bezel is pretty small to me, anyway. But I'm also someone who doesn't really notice or care about that.
I will say I think the bezels on the side are a little bit big, but
Yeah,
whatever.
it's that side bezel, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'll be okay.
but it'll room for improvement with the OLED.
It's smaller than the Steam Deck screen still, or like the same size now.
We don't know
I don't think
actual
we know.
details about the screen
Interesting.
size.
Okay, I
Yeah,
thought
the
that
rumor is that it's a 1080p screen this time,
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
approximately
Eight
somewhere within
inches,
an
I think.
inch.
Mhm.
What is it?
I think it's supposedly 8 inches screen.
Yeah, I think that was it was like supposed to be like basically an inch bigger than
Than the OLED.
the OLED. Yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that'll be nice, especially with the better kickstand for tabletop mode.
Oh yeah.
yeah. I mean, one thing
More
that is
comfortably
nice
on
about the
tables.
kickstand is that because it's a U shape, it's not blocking off anything. So like you can feed wires through it, right?
Right. You couldn't do that
Um,
with the OLED.
And then their solution for blocking the charge port is just putting another one on another USB-C port on top.
On the
Okay,
top, yeah.
the top USB-C port, I am
Yeah,
suspicious about.
I am as well.
Maybe I'm just looking too into it, but it feels like such a niche use case for them to add a whole other USB-C port. You know,
Yeah,
I feel like it's for accessories, honestly. Like say a
yeah,
camera. You know,
Mm.
yeah. I could
um,
see them taking advantage of the top USB-C port
I think it's good to
for
have,
something.
just
And it's
as
also
an
just
option.
and it's also just, and in the meantime, it also fixes a point of feedback where
Yeah,
it was difficult to maybe charge your
so
Switch
you can play
in
it in tabletop
tabletop.
all day long now if you want,
Yeah.
as your computer with
But I would
your
agree with
mouse
Mina that I do find it a bit suspicious.
for sure.
I don't think that's typically a Nintendo like solution that a USB like a port is blocked, so we're gonna add another one.
Mhm,
That
for
seems
sure.
a little excessive,
Yeah.
especially something like a USB-C port. Um, and I would welcome, you know, accessories or inputs like, for example, like the camera suggestion or whatever,
TV
through
tuner.
that, because that's the stuff that I find interesting. I don't really care too much about specifications and
Yeah,
whatnot. Like again,
for
the
sure.
most exciting thing to me is the mouse mode right now.
um, quick final thought, I guess, on the hardware. Um, it seems like it's just like this is a better Switch,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
Uh, and I think that ultimately I am fine with that. Like,
Yeah.
I think I know some people I've seen not much, it's not widespread, but I've seen a little bit of disappointment from some people of like, Nintendo usually innovates and this and that and blah blah. But to
Yeah.
me, I think with mouse mode and stuff like that, it's like Nintendo clearly still has room to innovate even while maintaining the
I
basic format of the Switch.
I
You
was
know?
Yeah.
bummed honestly until mouse mode. Mouse mode kind of like flipped my entire perspective around.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm typically someone who would prefer something a little bit more radical, but
Mhm.
I do think it makes sense to maintain. It's obviously the form factor and the convenience factor of Switch has been a big hit. Um,
It's just so popular,
doesn't
right? It's just such a
it
good
doesn't make
idea.
sense, I think, to be like to take a hard left turn. But I do
Yeah.
think that they are doing things within that structure, right? So like the mouse mode, adding the microphone back in. If they use USB-C for accessories, obviously the Joy-Con themselves, even for Switch One, like you had Ring Fit, which they built, the Ring Con to create a specific experience
Mhm.
um, for Switch. The system is still very modular.
Yeah.
Um, Switch One had those some limited use of stuff where you would have like for Mario Party where you would line the screens up or whatever. So I think there's definitely like room to experiment and do stuff within that framework. And then with the new added functions this time, there's a bit more that they're able to do by default as well. So I'm not too worried.
Just a random thought, but is it at all possible that like next to the optical sensor is like a small IR camera? Is that or
Mm,
is, like just not like show up in any of the leak type of thing? So
I
it's
don't
probably
think
not.
that's
Okay.
in the cards.
I was just thinking.
That being said, I do think mouse mode also allows for light gun games to be more,
Yeah, a little
possible
better.
here. Um,
Better than
which I
analog for
like
sure.
because the thing I wanted was the IR pointer back, and
Mhm.
we're not getting that, but
This is as close as we're gonna get, which I think is a good
it's
solution.
yeah, it's a close enough solution that I think would probably be better for light gun games versus the gyro input that we have
For
right now.
sure. Yeah.
And we still have that, so it's
Yeah.
like you have the onboard buttons, you have presumably you have HD rumble, you have the
For sure.
gyroscopes, which are hopefully maybe a little bit improved this time. Um, you have the mouse mode, you have the tablet onboard microphone, you have the touch screen. Um, so there is new stuff to work with. My main hope is that the IR camera is still there.
Mhm.
Um. So now that we talked about the hardware, we saw one piece of software,
Yes,
right?
we did.
And that was a brand new Mario Kart game.
Mhm.
Yep.
Uh, the main thing here seems to be 24-player races.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Um,
redesign Donkey Kong.
and
Yeah.
redesigned Donkey Kong.
Which I
I guess
initially thought he looked stupid, but I'm starting to warm up to him now.
I okay. So I know people love new Donkey Kong, right?
Mhm.
And I like him too. Don't get me wrong. But I have such a strong like attachment to rare Donkey Kong
Yeah.
Yeah.
that it's hard to see change, you know.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I don't mind him.
It
I
might
I
also just be like a costume too.
I eh,
true.
I do think that it's funny that some people I've seen suggest that they changed him because of the Mario movie, when in fact it's more likely that they were doing that design for him and incorporated it in the Mario movie.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would bet on that
Putting
too.
the pot
Makes
before the
sense.
kettle, or whatever the expression is.
I mean, this
Um,
is a bit off topic, but I do feel like redesigned Donkey Kong to me strongly suggests that EPD is taking Donkey Kong under their wing.
yes, yeah.
Mm.
It suggests a renewed interest. Not that
In
a
Donkey
whole ass
Kong.
theme
Yeah.
park wasn't, but you
Yeah,
know, seeing that is like, okay, we're doing things with Donkey Kong right now.
That's
yeah.
interesting. Mhm. I like that.
And
But yeah, Mario Kart.
Yeah.
obviously Donkey Kong Country Returns HD came out today as well, which is, again, it's just a simple port, but it's
Yeah.
not nothing.
With
You know
like
what I
the
Yeah.
mean?
worst loading.
Yeah, outside of the bad loads, it's not
Mhm.
nothing.
Mhm.
It's like
For
we're like,
sure.
hey, here the theme park is opening with Donkey Kong this year. The Mario movie came out featuring Donkey Kong. We have a port of Donkey Kong this year. We added the Donkey Kong Land games last year.
Is
We
this the year of
made a
Donkey
big
Kong?
deal about the whole DKC series being on one system. So it's not like they're not. I think it would be kind of silly to think that they're like not interested
Mhm.
in Donkey Kong, and I think that design showing up here with him getting a fresh look may be indicative of that. But
For sure.
more specifically about Mario Kart, I liked the look. It has sort of this like rounder Super Mario Kart esque look to it, which I really like.
Can I say Mario looks adorable in this game?
He
Yeah.
does. His cheeks look like they're puffed up.
Mario looks less serious and less ready to go to battle
Yeah,
in this one.
he does look more sort of whimsical and cartoony, which I prefer.
Same.
Um, And the track they showed wasn't anything particularly interesting. We also only saw it for a few seconds. I know there's that new item that's on the track that looks like a lunch bag when slowed down.
Mm.
So I'm curious. I'm curious what the conceit of.
I saw some people talking about fuel too.
Yeah, I saw that. I
They
think that
really
was because
like.
it was positioned in like a pit stop.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily
I don't know if it's
indicative of
anything.
anything. We've had pit stops in Mario Kart courses before that have like item boxes or whatever. I know some people at first thought the item, like the little lunch bag, was a wonder flower. So
Hmm.
they're obviously they just were showing, hey, like we're making a new Mario Kart as a key title for this system. This is kind of an idea of what to expect, and that's kind of about it. Like we're not,
Which
you
is
know,
interesting
the
to
focus
reveal
today is the
a
hardware.
console with a multiplayer title forward.
Well, I
I feel like
mean,
it's usually not that way.
Switch is a built-in multiplayer
Oh,
system.
for
Like
sure.
that's one of the
The first
core.
game we saw was still Breath of the Wild, though.
Yeah, but
but keep in mind, like the best-selling Switch game is Mario Kart 8,
For sure.
right?
yeah,
So like there is no smarter launch game
yeah,
than the successor to Mario Kart 8.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
know?
yeah.
we'll have Mario Kart Switch 2 bundles from like year 2 onward.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Every
for
single
sure.
holiday.
And
Yeah.
again, yeah, with Switch being that's another conceit, or not another conceit, another major core concept of Switch that I don't think we really brought up so far. That's also carrying over is that with detachable controllers, the idea is that you have built-in two-player, and that's obviously continuing here. And Mario Kart is again the biggest game on Switch. It's one of the biggest games in general.
Mhm.
So being like, hey, yeah, Switch 2 is here, and we're launching a new Mario Kart game on it. It's going to continue to be this mecca for multiplayer games, and it's backwards compatible with everything. I think it's just more like,
Yeah. Which is just
kind of-
awesome because we have like this ultimate version of Mario Kart 8. We have this ultimate version of Smash Brothers. We have
yeah,
a lot of backwards compatibility games. You can play a lot of Zeldas, a lot of Marios.
and that's why, in particular, this is kind of going off a little bit, so I won't go on it too long. But that's why I also think that the Switch 2 versions of their series are going to be less focused on like best ofs and more on new stuff that differentiates them.
Yeah.
Because
Yes,
they're
I
going to
fully
want
agree
to
with that.
continue to sell those evergreens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you can
I
still Smash Ultimate forever.
Yeah, you
right.
can sell Mario Kart 8 Deluxe forever, but how do you make a new Mario Kart game and then maybe also, allow the old one to keep moving units? Well, if you focus it very much more on entirely new content, then you have two very different Mario Kart games.
Which also, I think it's interesting that this is a big hardware jump, right? We don't know the exact specs or whatever, but we know it's a big jump in hardware, right?
Yeah.
And Nintendo, there's some discourse about the graphics of this game and like whatever. I don't really care for that. I don't really care to discuss that either.
Same.
But what I find interesting is that they are using the extra hardware power for new gameplay ideas, right? They're like, hey, let's double the racers in Mario Kart,
right? Yeah.
Which is something they couldn't do on Switch. I don't think the Switch can handle 24 racers in one race, right?
At least not at a quality level that would be satisfactory.
Right. And so, that kind of excites me, is like, oh, Nintendo's going to use the extra hardware power for gameplay ideas, right? Obviously, there will be games with amazing graphics for sure, right? But I'm very interested to see what Nintendo feels like these franchises can do now that they have more juice to work with.
Yeah. Which is interesting because I haven't really seen that since honestly like around like Xbox 360 where like they were using like a game like Dead Rising had so many different characters on screen that you just couldn't do on a PlayStation 2.
Right.
I mean, that's typically where Nintendo's interests with power lie, I feel like. And apologies if you can hear my Pikmin alarm going off in the background. But that actually was going to be an example I brought up because GameCube was like that with Pikmin. Having a lot of creatures that can be independently or, moved about is something that was made possible by the improvements in tech for GameCube. So I think their interest in terms of hardware power is always going to be in, an experience that they weren't able to create previously, as opposed to
they're not going for
this
4K,
thing is prettier
4K
now.
60, most realistic thing you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah, and I mean, anyone who if someone's expecting Mario Kart to be like quote unquote like ultra realistic, I'm really not sure what game you're playing. The game 8 looks great already, and obviously has a look to it that is a bit more realistic, quote unquote, than maybe other Mario or Nintendo titles. But like, it's not like this is not Gran Turismo. So I would agree that I'm curious what kind of experience is going to be created leveraging the power jump.
Hmm.
Also keeping in mind that, again, it still has to go between handheld and docked, and there are obviously been strong rumors about NVIDIA DLSS and all that fun stuff, which you can't glean from a reveal trailer, but presumably are also accurate given that the other details are accurate.
Yeah.
All right.
I think, and then, so I'm really excited. When am I gonna find out more?
So
Well,
we
apparently.
know that they are having a Nintendo Direct, Nintendo Switch 2 on April 2nd.
Oh, it's so far away, though.
That is very far away.
It is far. It is
But
far.
I will say, I did the math. This is actually 1 week less than the time between the Switch reveal trailer and the Switch presentation. Switch one, that is. So
That's funny.
Very fun.
we're actually, they cut it down by a week.
It's pretty generous of them.
Very generous with it. But yeah.
I think it would be fun to ask you guys, obviously we're not going to know more until the Direct, and I'm assuming that Direct will include launch information and stuff. Is there anything that you guys expect in regards to release timing, price, and maybe launch titles, or what you think we might see in that Direct? Just briefly.
I'm thinking June.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking 449.
Okay.
Wow.
And I'm thinking Mario Kart and Metroid Prime 4 launch the system.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Mario Kart, Metroid Prime 4, and then a casual
And some
game that focuses on the mouse.
some gimmick game. Not gimmick game, but you know what I mean.
But like a Nintendo Land type thing where, hey, here's a bunch of cool stuff you can do with our new system.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And maybe mouse mode is the only new gimmick, and maybe there's other stuff, but I think whatever that Nintendo Land equivalent is, and whether that's probably a paid thing, but whether that's a paid thing or a pack-in, it'll be a fun, casual thing that you can do with multiple people, and it will show off the fun new features.
Yeah.
What do you think in terms of price and launch?
I do think June sounds good. 450 just sounds really high for Nintendo. I'm still gonna lean on like the 400 side, but
I feel similar. I feel $399 is going to be the price point. Release timing, it could I could see summer. I could see as late as September. That's kind of like the range I'm seeing is like for me is like June through September, just sometime summer. But I do feel strongly that it'll be $399. And in terms of launch stuff, I definitely, Mario Kart's kind of an obvious one. I don't know if the rumored Breath of the Wild quote unquote remaster is something that's intended for release or if it's just, a demo kind of just showing
I do wonder. I could see like so many different ways. I could see it being a launch game. I could see it being a later thing. I could see it being a paid upgrade.
Yeah, I can also see
I
them.
really wonder how they'll deal with that.
I can see them launching Prime 4 around the time of Switch 2. I don't know if they would launch it simultaneously, but I can also see that game being enhanced for Switch 2, particularly the mouse stuff.
For sure.
I don't think that they will not put out some titles that are playable on Switch 1 but have Switch 2 enhancements if it's recognized that it's being played in the system.
When the like Xbox Series X came out, there were like the Series X enhanced games of the old like Xbox One games, and with their focus on backwards compatibility, I wouldn't be shocked if they tried that a little bit.
Yeah, I think there is going to be a little bit of cross-gen stuff in the sense of this is a Switch 1 game that you can enjoy, and you can also play it on Switch 2, and it's a little bit better on Switch 2.
Yeah. Maybe
not
even for some other
entirely.
stuff, like maybe Smash is in 4K now. Who knows?
Yeah, like I could see certain evergreens being patched
Updated.
to
Supporting
even if it's not
faster
in
loads or
anything.
something.
Yeah, even if it's not anything like crazy, but something that maybe makes the experience a little bit more pleasant. If you play it on Switch 2.
Yeah.
But the thing is, yeah, I mean, this isn't the same thing, but when there were games released towards the end of the DS life cycle, they were playable on all DS units, but featured DSi enhancements, and this isn't the same thing because Switch 2 is a straight successor as opposed to a revision.
Yeah.
But I do see a similar.
Remember, there's the new 3DS too.
Yeah, that too. A similar sort of thing going on.
Maybe
where,
like Age of Calamity could really benefit from
yeah, and
some
we'll
extra
be.
power.
I'm curious to see what stuff may potentially benefit on Switch 2 without a specific update.
Yeah. I mean, like
right?
unlocked frame rate games, you would really
I'm
feel
hoping
Right.
anything with an unlocked frame rate just naturally runs better, right?
Yeah.
They
So
have to test that a lot because for some games they can like break.
Yeah.
Break
So I'm
things.
curious what that'll end up doing. Also curious what third parties will end up doing with their lineups. There's plenty of rumors about Ubisoft having
they
games that
retweeted the
they're
announcement.
ready to ship, so that's all going to play out later, but I think it's an interesting thought exercise. I guess for launch, I'm kind of just expecting Prime and Pokemon Legends somewhere near launch, and then in terms of like actual Switch 2 stuff, Mario Kart, I could see them doing a 3D Mario maybe later in the year.
I
Maybe
think 3D
next
Mario
year.
is definitely the holiday game. 3D
Yeah,
Mario is
I feel like
100%
that's
the holiday
holiday.
game.
Yeah, if they're doing it, it's going to be a holiday timing,
I mean,
like even if October
it's
or
sad
whatever.
that it's not launched, but as long as there's other stuff to play, I'll get over it.
I'm not
Yeah,
too
as long as
sad.
it's year one,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a desire for new games for Switch 2, and that's obviously going to be very important. But there's also a continued lineup of Switch 1 games, and I do believe they're going to continue to maintain the one game a month cadence, at least
for sure.
leading up to Switch 2, and then Switch 2 having a game that's maybe experimental, like 1-2 Switch, Mario Kart, and maybe something else for launch month, and then kind of going back into that cadence again following it.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a very, especially because how long it's been since Switch 1, I think we're going to see a very stacked
Yeah,
year one of Switch 2.
they know what they need to do with their software lineup, and I don't see any reason to believe that they're not going to continue at the same cadence, especially with how much planning, and how much they've been working on stuff internally for a while now. So I'm excited to see that. I think there'll be plenty of games, and the Switch 1 library is just gonna boost that tremendously. Yeah, stuff like the OS and all that will be interesting to the eShop will be interesting to see when we get closer. I don't know if when they'll detail that, but we got 3 months.
Yeah. And until then, hopefully we'll get another Switch Direct with some final smaller games and ports and stuff like that.
Which I'm fine with. I'm someone who believes that buying, you buy the box to get the games. I don't want to spend money on the box. So if I'm spending money on the box, then I want to be getting some kind of value out of it.
For sure.
Yeah,
and
for
I know,
sure.
and they know that as well. For the average person, it's a hassle having to buy a new system. So whatever they're doing, I imagine they're going to have something compelling in a compelling launch period. But yeah.
Pretty much the Switch 2.
Yeah, that's about everything.
We're here. This is the start. This is the start of our new journey.
It's begun.
It's
it
only
has
been
begun.
like 20 years.
It is kind of lame that everything got leaked, but here we are.
Yeah, there was not many surprises here.
Nope. The mouse mode almost made it to not being leaked. Almost.
We had fun though.
Almost.
But yeah,
Right,
so I guess we'll maybe do another one of these before the heat death of the universe.
Let's hope so. Yeah, but that's been the Nintendo Pipeline Podcast. Thank you everyone for being here, and hopefully we'll see y'all again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.